Hello everyone and welcome to another in my constructed video series. This is Brian Kibler with StarCityGames.com, and those of you who read my article last week or who watched my video last week know that I am a big fan of this Constellation deck. It's a deck that I played in my videos last week and made a few tweaks to. Been playing a little bit throughout the week, wrote a bit about my article, and been having a blast. Not only because the deck can do some crazy and fun and powerful things, but also because it's I think very good. So the big differences between this particular version of the deck and the one that I played last week, very small. I've removed 2 copies of Banishing Light. Banishing Light I found was both not a great answer to a lot of the threats that you want to be able to deal with. Things like Stormbreath Dragon aren't answered by Banishing Light. Things like Mutavault can give you trouble. And you also can just, especially if you have a bunch of Banishing Lights, you can run into annoying situations where your removal is vulnerable to opposing removal. This comes up the most against Abrupt Decay, where you want to be able to Banishing Light something, and then you're afraid to actually attack. You say you Banishing Light your opponent's Desecration Demon, and then you're afraid to actually attack them with your creatures, because if they have Abrupt Decay, they get to kill your Banishing Light, get back their demon, and kill their guy. So it can be pretty awkward there. Also against Detention Sphere, it's particularly debilitating if you have multiple Banishing Lights in play and your opponent plays a Detention Sphere, because it gets to take them all out and get back whatever it is that you were Oblivion ringing yourself. So you end up having those weird sort of enchantment exile wars that Detention Sphere is much better at. So having only a couple of Banishing Lights in your deck means that you are less likely to have those situations come up. They can still come up, and you're certainly not immune to them, but relying on Banishing Light a bit less for your removal by only having 2 copies means that it is less likely to be something that comes up. So it is worth noting, by the way, that now that we're down to only a couple copies of Banishing Light, that this deck is mostly just white-green. We have 2 Banishing Light and 2 Elspeth. There's a lot of other possible color combinations that I think might be worth exploring. We do have Nyx Fleece Fram and Obsidian in the sideboard, which are also white. And Banishing Light and Elspeth do offer a lot, but it's worth considering that the deck could be just 2 colors or could look into other colors, and that's something that I'm potentially going to explore in the future. But this week we're playing with the junk version again. And then, in addition to the removing the Banishing Light, they've been replaced by a Hero's Downfall for more removal ability, and then a copy of Underworld Connections. One of the things that I think this deck is vulnerable to is just flooding out. It doesn't have that many cards which are individually powerful. It has a number of reactive cards, a lot of mana production with Sylvan Caryatid and Mana Bloom, and then the engine cards like the Eidolon of Blossoms and Doomwig Giant. And a card that helps sort of smooth all that out is Underworld Connections. We see this a lot in the Black Devotion decks in Standard right now, where you're able to play just a boatload of removal spells because, well, you stick an Underworld Connections and eventually just you can draw. If you draw a bunch of dead cards in some matchups, it's fine because you're just drawing so many cards. Exchanging one for one your resources, it works out totally fine. This deck doesn't really want tons of connections necessarily because it has other engines it can get online that are actually better uses of your mana in many cases. That specifically being Eidolon of Blossoms, which is awesome. But you do really want to have at least a reasonable number of effects that you can draw that can really get you going, that can allow you to draw into your removal and through all of your clumps of mana in your 32 mana source deck, and find your big heavy hitters like Eidolon of Blossoms and Doomwig Giant. Sideboard-wise, the deck is really similar. I have an extra Doomblade to the previous version, extra Nyx Fleece Ram from the previous version. I've cut the Primeval Bounty. It was just kind of a little too cute. The deck already does powerful things, doesn't need more powerful things, which is another one of the sort of criticisms with Elspeth. But Elspeth at least has really powerful immediate game impact and can kind of win on its own. But I do think that it's worth exploring this deck, as I said, as just green-black, or potentially with red. I don't know if you play in red necessarily, or with blue. In blue, I don't know what you get there either, but basically just sort of looking in other directions, because I think the amount of value you get from white might be low enough that it's worth looking at other directions. So anyway, we are gonna go battle with this deck and see how we do. As I said, I've been loving it so far and have had a lot of success against a lot of different types of decks. So I'm eager to see how it performs today. So let's take it into battle.